So I remember cooking my first egg when I was about 5-6 years old. I don't know what possessed me to do it. My parents worked a lot, so I was home alone very often, and one day I just decided, I'm hungry. I want to make me some eggs. So I just went up to the stove, turned it on, and made me a couple over easy eggs, and that was that. And actually, to this day, over easy eggs is one of my favorite things to cook. Hey, I'm Chef Brian Tsao, co-owner and co-operator of Rad Catering, based right here in my hometown of Flushing, Queens, New York. Growing up in New York I'm still here, so obviously I like it well enough. But it's very unique in the sense of its cultural diversity. That's very obvious to most people. But I also grew up in a very culturally diverse home. So my mother's Korean, my father is Taiwanese. Grew up speaking English. I didn't speak either language. I wasn't Korean enough. I wasn't Chinese enough. It was one of those scenarios, but that really opened up my mind and exposed me to so many different cultures, because I met so many other kids in the neighborhood who were kind of going through the same identity crisis living in New York. My best friend growing up was Italian, or is Italian. I was Italian, but to sum it up, growing up in New York, I love it. Well, when I was 15 years old, I wasn't the greatest kid to my parents, but mainly my parents were very concerned because I was starting within New York City. I was having that small town mentality, and they wanted to expose me to something much bigger and greater than myself. So they shipped me off to Beijing, China when I was the tender age of 14 years old, 14 going on to 15, and I lived there for 6 years of my life. So what got me through living in China, what most people don't know is that my first year in China was very tough. At the time, I was a 360-pound kid, extremely overweight. I'm pretty tall for an Asian kid, and I stuck out like a sore thumb. And when I got there, I didn't have any friends. I didn't speak the language. There was a culture shock, and what got me through those times was music. Just the year before, I had been listening to a lot of music since I was 5-6 years old, like the Beatles, Van Halen, even the Bee Gees, basically whatever was in my parents' record collection, literal records, vinyl records. But the year before, I'd gotten into metal and heavier music, and that really shocked my system and kind of affected me in a very specific way. And that is really what held me over, especially Pantera. I had been cooking my entire life. I always took pride in the ability to cook. Helped me with the ladies. But also, I had been cooking from a very young age, but I never thought about taking a career in the culinary arts. I always thought I would be a professional musician. And when that didn't really work out for myself, the whole sex, drugs, rock and roll, that's a whole nother documentary. I came back to the States and I applied to John Jay School of Criminal Justice. I thought I was going to become a cop or something like that. And I walked into the hallways of the school the first day, and I just walked in and I literally said, fuck this shit. And I walked out and I called my dad up and I said, hey, you know anybody who needs a strong, able body, young, youthful body, short of male prostitution. And my dad just so happened to know a guy, and it was a pastry factory in Brooklyn, and that's where I got my start as a dishwasher. And I kind of fell into the chefing world by accident because it engaged me mentally, physically, and also it engaged the creative aspect of my mind, but also required that discipline that I needed at the time. I was the executive chef of Silk Hospitality Group, which owns Mira restaurants, one in Queens, one in Manhattan, and Kimoto Rooftop. And what put me on the map was Mira in Flatiron, Manhattan, which is the restaurant where I had defeated Bobby Flay on the Food Network show Beat Bobby Flay.
And the winner is Brian.
All right. My name's Brian Tsao, and I just beat Bobby Flay! Leaving the restaurant world and starting my own business in general, because I do more than just catering, I do consulting as well. was twofold. It was a double-edged sword. So I loved it because I was able to go home every night and have dinner with my family. I was in a much more relaxed state of mind, but I also didn't have that cushy check that I was used to being an executive chef. But I won't go into details of why I left. There were certain things I felt I had to put my foot down on, so to speak, to maintain my integrity. So I left, and it was the best decision of my life. My specific style, I always call it American comfort food with an Asian twist. Obviously, I was born and raised in this great country, America. I don't care what anybody says. This is a great country. I love this country. But my upbringing's Asian, and I incorporate that into my cooking. It's just natural. But I'm also a huge fan of the pastry arts. So that's actually what I'm doing right now for the company I work for as of now, which is Snow Days. Snow Days is a frozen dessert company transitioning into dessert cafes that I am very fortunate to be leading the way. Incorporating music into the culinary arts was another thing that kind of happened by accident. It just happened as a result of who I am and what I involve myself in. I have been cooking longer than I've been playing guitar, but I've been playing guitar more seriously and been a musician longer than I have been chefing. And these two things are disciplines if you really want to get good at them. Not to say that I'm very good at them, but they are disciplines, and I definitely took to both of them. And I think it was just natural. Really, the pinnacle moment where I think it really came together was when Frank Godla of Metal Injection made me the host of Taste of Metal, which is a web series I have on metalinjection.net where we get metal artists into my kitchen. I show them a dish and they have to recreate that dish, which I get to grade them on. So I just want people to be entertained. I want them to maybe learn something out of the dish that I create, and I want them to be enthusiastic about that. I want people cooking in their homes again, which is another reason why I left the restaurant business. Is through Taste of Metal, I'm able to promote people cooking again, and being inspired to cook with the ones that they love most. And having all these incredible artists on Taste of Metal, I'm literally cooking, for people that inspire me, that I care about, that I love, that, just make me want to do more. And that's really what I'm looking to continue to do with Taste of Metal, and I hope that continues on.
Very few things in the world smell as good as garlic and butter.
So Rad Catering, we always say that it's custom tailored referral food services only. So we like to be selective about the customers that we serve, because the idea of Rad Catering is that we are bringing the party. We are making you part of our party. Okay, you're throwing a party, we're gonna make it better for you. Whatever you need, we will provide it. And it's been working great, and we've been having a lot of fun with it. And I think that is just the path that we're gonna keep going on. Hope for the Day. So I met the Hope for the Day people. Shout out to Johnny Boucher of Hope for the Day. I met them actually, I think 2 years ago at this point, and there was just great synergy. And at some point I realized I had a lot to say about mental health. I will admit that I continue to see therapy to this day. I will admit that I've had suicide attempts. I will admit that I still struggle with mental health to this day. But I also realized that I was very passionate talking about it to people who needed it, and that I wasn't shy about it. I grew up in an Asian home where it was very taboo to talk about mental health issues, and I realized, I had been suppressing these thoughts that really needed to be spoken about. And it wasn't until I spoke about these things that I started healing and getting better. And I realized that there are a lot of people, I'm talking beyond the Asian culture. There are a lot of people in the culinary services that have the same issue. It's such a machismo, macho world that you always have to push harder and be faster and be stronger and cook better, and it's so competitive and cutthroat that people sometimes forget about themselves, and these mental health issues are not spoken about. In fact, they're suppressed in these worlds, and this is something I want to bring awareness about. So I am partnering up with Hope for the Day. We are throwing an event called Small Bites of Hope, May 18th, Thursday, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Gibson ShowRoom in Manhattan. This is an event that I will be hosting, and my co-host will be Jesse Leach of Kill Switch Engage. And it'll be a night of food, drinks, all for the sake of fundraising for mental health awareness and suicide prevention. So I hope you can all join me for that event. So you can find me at Chef Brian Tsao, Brian with an I, Tsao spelled T-S-A-O. Also my company, Rad Catering, F-A-T-R-A-D Catering, across all major social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Please give us a follow. May 18th, Small Bites of Hope with Hope for the Day, suicide prevention and mental health awareness, and I'll see you there.